Hey yo everybody, this is another installment of Finding Sensibility, where we take positive or inspirational quotes, see if we can make them work in our day-to-day, or if they might just be a product of the times. Today, I'm afraid I'm going to spend more time actually talking about the man than the quote, but I'm going to try to pull it back a little bit, because to understand where I feel like this guy's trying to come from requires a much bigger sense of who he was as a writer and ultimately what he tried to be as an artist. Oscar is being annoying again, if you can't tell. So our quote today comes from Henry Miller. He was a writer who ultimately pushed the limits of what was considered decency and forced a lot of people at the time to evaluate what they considered to be literature and what they considered to be pornography. We're going to hold off on the quote a little bit because I don't want to get gummed up in that. Another thing that Henry Miller was noteworthy for was kind of refining what is called the fictionalized autobiography. The fictionalized autobiography is you have the main pieces that you want to tell, you rearrange them to kind of spice them up, and you embellish them a little bit for the spots that you don't completely remember. That's not a trustworthy autobiography. That's not a trustworthy story. At what point does nonfiction become fiction? How many I should say, at what point does nonfiction become fiction inspired by a true story? A big issue I have with this guy is that he's already taken some of his credibility away because he can't even just make a good autobiography, and he can't even make good fiction. He has to kind of blend the two. I don't really like this guy, so I'm being a bit judgy today. The other thing I have an issue with is when he first set out to write Tropic of Cancer, which seems to be one of his more noteworthy pieces. He wrote a letter as he was starting to a friend that, among other things, said this was going to be first person, it was going to be uncensored, and it was going to be formless. This drives me crazy when artists try to say they're formless. Anybody can go out and do anything and call it formless. If you are going to consider yourself an artist or a writer or anything like that, you need to actually cross a threshold into the field you're working in. Not all jazz is music. A lot of jazz is noise. But when you hear good jazz, it is amazing music. But just because you call it jazz, just because you call it free-flowing and free-form, doesn't mean it's jazz. Chances are it's just noise. There was another artist I read about a few years ago, I believe his name was Alex Gray. He did a performance piece where he sat at a table, ate a spaghetti dinner, and photographed the whole thing. And that's what made it art. Ate a spaghetti dinner. After he finished the spaghetti dinner, he shaved his head, the hair off of his head into the plate, took a dose of Ipecac, threw up his spaghetti dinner all over the hair he just cut off on his plate, and then put it all in a bag. Plates, dishes, the food, the mess, the hair, everything. Just put it in a grocery bag, and that was his final culmination. If that's art, I really don't get art. And now we're finally going to get to his quote. All growth is a leap in the dark, a spontaneous, unpremeditated act without the benefit of experience. This quote came from a book he wrote called Wisdom of the Heart, where it was basically just a lot of his sort of philosophical ideas and ranting about life and love and all of these different things. And so, all growth is a leap in the dark, a spontaneous, unpremeditated act without the benefit of experience. I struggle to understand what he means with some of this, and I'm going to try to translate what I take from it. When he says growth, I don't understand what he means by that. What I feel he means is essentially action, and I'm going to explain why in a second. So when he says growth, I feel like he's actually just saying action. A spontaneous, unpremeditated act without the benefit of experience. To me, that says random. That is unpremeditated. You haven't thought about it. Without the benefit of experience, it's something totally new that you've done, or that you've never done before. And you just jump right into it, not knowing what to expect. Without getting into the ideas of faith versus experience, what I'm just going to leave it at is this seems random. What I feel he's saying is random actions. The rest of this quote that actually came from the book, all growth is a leap in the dark, a spontaneous, unpremeditated act without the benefit of experience. Every sign of growth is a revolt against death. So that's why I feel that when he's saying growth, he simply means action. It parallels with I'll rest when I'm dead. Somebody who works all the time or anything like that. I'll take care of this now because I'll just rest when I'm dead. He led a life that was very hypersexualized, openly crude, and made himself have no boundaries. Which, okay, if you choose to live like that, that's one thing. But don't try to glorify it or consider it more noble than it is. All you're doing is just not respecting yourself or the people around you to have the boundaries that you should have. That's what makes people decent. That's how we get along with each other, is you respect me, I respect you. But if I respect you more than myself, I'm going to do a lot of harm to myself just to make sure you feel respected, and vice versa. If I think I'm greater than you, then I am going to put you down a lot to make sure I still feel superior. I don't like this at all. Not only do I think it's not positive, I think it's just bad. I don't think there's a way to salvage this. So if anything, the way we can make this positive is avoid these random actions and this boundaryless existence that this guy tried to cultivate. Recognize what limitations you need to have on the interactions you have with people. I understand that just because I want to swear out loud in a public place, I have the right to do so. I'm also subjecting people to listen to the way I want to talk just because I feel I shouldn't have to censor myself, or I shouldn't have to stay quiet just because I want to say a swear word out loud. Growth and action does not need to be an unpremeditated act, and if it is, that's extremely short-sighted on our part. If you are not considering the outcome or the consequences of the action or the growth that you're about to take, it could end really, really badly. It could not. It could end amazingly. It could be the best thing that ever happened to you. But there's less of a chance than that happening, and it may only happen so many times. So think about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Think about how you treat people and yourself. And just because you don't want boundaries doesn't mean everybody doesn't want you to have them. Don't whistle out loud in public. Drives me crazy. Those are my thoughts. This one was more of a rant than anything else, so I hope we were able to get somewhere positive, but I honestly don't know. This was a bad one. I didn't like this one. Try again tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have something good for you. Until then, stay tuned and stay real.